Guys, what a wild Dutch Grand Prix. I mean, we had retirements, we had the threat of rain, it seems like every other lap, we had some crazy retirements, and we had a new driver join the podium club this season in an unexpected and absolutely perfect race from him. It was wild, we're going to talk about it. It's our 2025 Dutch Grand Prix review. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and we are following the Dutch Grand Prix here in 2025. The Dooms of Zandvoort were alive and well from the jump this weekend. It was wild. We saw crazy spins, crazy incidents, and a lot of action on track for once at a track like Zandvoort, which, quite a narrow track. You really don't expect to see too much crazy incidents or action, but boy, did we. We're going to talk about everything we saw in our quick hits. We're going to go over our weekend winners and losers, and then we'll wrap things up like we always do by going over the predictions that we made before the weekend began. Let's go ahead, without further ado, jump on into this thing with our weekend quick hits. Where else do you start with the weekend than who came out on top when it was all said and done? Oscar Piastri is your winner for the 2025 Dutch Grand Prix. Started on pole, led every lap, got the fastest lap, and came home to win the race. His first Grand Slam of his career. It was a truly inspired performance, holding off not only his teammate, but the hometown hero Max Verstappen for the duration. It was a truly wonderful performance from Oscar, who really took all the punches of this race and quietly and dominantly went on his way to a win, putting a good 25 points on his closest championship rival, his own teammate Lando Norris. We'll cover that one in a minute. But it was a truly fantastic performance from Oscar. He kind of came out of nowhere, as Lando Norris seemed to be on the pace from the jump this weekend, being the top in FP1, 2, and 3. Fortunately for Oscar, it was not but a couple of hundredths of seconds separation between him and Lando for pole position, and that effectively was all it took. Oscar comes home to take the win in the Netherlands and a very sizable lead as we head towards Monza next time out. All right, we mentioned it, the Lando Norris unfortunate DNF. It's, I believe, his first mechanical DNF in, what was it, like 4 or 5 years, I think. And so truly not something any of us were really expecting. The McLaren has looked dang near bulletproof, as well as most of these cars for the most part. You very rarely see reliability DNFs at this day and age, and it came at probably the worst possible time. Not only at it was like 15 to 16 laps left, unfortunately. His engine, I think it was an oil issue where it may have oil leak or something. I don't think I actually saw exactly what it was, but I think that was the theory going around when it was happening live. But that was unfortunately his race done and gone, and it was watching him just in the sand dunes in the middle of the track, looking and seeing on as Oscar went to put a race win in between him and Lando for the championship. It's got to hurt the most. It definitely didn't seem like he was really truly going to challenge Oscar for the win, but as soon as that comes in, obviously it's all up in flames at that point. So it is absolutely absolutely a distraught Lando Norris as they leave the Netherlands and head back towards Italy for Monza. And it's going to take a lot, I think, for Lando to kind of get back on the high horse and get back out there with the same level of confidence he might have had before. Because, man, when you're 34 points behind, granted, there are still 9 races left, a lot can happen. You never know what's going to happen with Oscar. He very well could just as easily have a DNF himself, and Lando Norris obviously would be there to take the win. So we'll be keeping an eye on it, but this one is definitely gotta hurt. Isaac Hadjar, welcome to the podium club, my friend. What an absolutely perfect race from you today. What a performance from Isaac. It puts it P4 in qualifying, and everyone's looking around going, what an inspired performance. But unfortunately for him, he is in a V-carb, and it's definitely not going to go his way in the race. But nonetheless, he did exactly what he needed to do, put the car in the perfect positions, and was there to take advantage of the Lando Norris DNF to spawn into P3 and get his first podium of his career, and actually be, was it the first V-carb or RB or AlphaTauri podium, and however long it was. He was dang near almost the top Red Bull car just because he was just behind his own teammate, not his own teammate, but teammate in the Red Bull family, Max Verstappen, who came home in P2. So an absolutely fantastic performance from Isaac. He did exactly what he needed to do. He was there to take advantage, and while it wasn't a crazy race with crazy strategy calls or weather mixing things up, He did literally everything he could have asked for, and it really was, I think, a good weekend for him, as RB definitely showed a lot of pace out there, holding off Mercedes, Ferraris, and everything in between to hold on to his first podium. It was fantastic to watch, and I couldn't be happier for such a young driver. I think in the exact opposite equation, what a long day and a potentially long weekend for Ferrari, who looked really lost out there in a couple of points this weekend. Definitely not on the pace and definitely struggled over the course of the weekend leading up to the race itself. Then, unfortunately, in the race, we had Lewis Hamilton in those sort of mixed conditions early on in the race with a little bit of a light sprinkle dusting the track, got up onto the painted area coming around the embanked turn of turn 3. Just understeered up, and he was basically a passenger at that point. It was a low-speed DNF and has to hurt a lot. Unfortunately, that also screwed over Charles Leclerc, who had just pitted. I think it was the lap before, so that kind of put him down the order. Only for Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli to come together in the later stages of the race, with Kimi Antonelli making a, we'll just go with, inspired dive bomb around the very same turn 3, the high banked corner at the beginning of the lap, clipping Charles Leclerc, sending him careening into the same barrier that took out his teammate. And that was all she wrote for the Scuderia as they now head to Monza to try and recover. It was a crazy situation to watch not only Lewis lose it on his own, but to watch Kimi Antonelli, who has had a couple of those moments of some young driver mistakes, kind of collecting another driver like Charles Leclerc. Ferrari was never really going to be challenging for the podium, I think, in this one. I don't think they really showed much pace at all, and the fact that they were there or thereabouts, I think, was a good testament to the drivers themselves. But at the same time, to get taken out like that has to be extremely frustrating. We got a lot of really good shots of Charles Leclerc sitting up on the hill, very similarly as we did to Lando Norris later. So I guess he got a little bit of a photo shoot out of it, but at the end of the day, a long weekend for Ferrari. We'll go with another couple of quick points, and I would be remiss to mention Haas double points, baby. Ollie Behrman going from pit lane to P6, and Esteban Ocon, who even got caught out by an ill-timed safety car, also coming home to finish in P10, bringing home 9 points for the squad. Ollie Behrman gets his best finish in his F1 career, his very short F1 career, usurping his P7 for Ferrari last season in Jeddah, and it could not have come at a better time. Ollie has been flirting with some really good results so far this season, and it's just taken a couple of things here or there to kind of hold him back from really putting together a solid race from this perspective and really bringing home that result that we've all been kind of waiting for. So this was a fantastic strategy call from Haas to go long from the beginning and ultimately get caught and saved by the safety car. But you know what? Sometimes track position is king, and the late safety car only solidified that result for us. So a fantastic result, and I could not be happier as a Haas fan. And then last but not least, we have to mention Yuki Tsunoda finishing in the points for the first time since Imola. Definitely needed to get that shout out there. And while he did have a couple of moments over the course of this race, especially towards the latter half, also dealing with a car issue where late in the race, I think it was, he didn't have about 40% of the throttle movement before he had access to the full power of the engine. So dealing with mechanical issues, dealing with, just dealing with this race, coming home to finish P9, could not be happier for Yuki, who I'm hoping can get, roll this up into a bit more confidence going forward to try and pull together some more results, but time will tell. All right, let's move on now to our weekend winners and losers. We're actually going to go pretty quick on this because I don't know how much more we really have to talk about. For my weekend winner, first and foremost, it's got to be Isaac Hadjar. It's not so often that you see a rookie like him spawn in the podium, and it was very fun to watch. He really nailed it in qualifying, like I talked about. He did exactly what he needed to do in the race to put himself in position to take advantage of the Lando Norris DNF, and he got a very well-deserved P3 in this one, and then promptly broke his trophy in the team celebration afterwards. So it's probably a rite of passage somewhere in the history books. Honorable mention for my weekend winner has to be, I'm going to go with Haas as a Haas fan, mainly because of my huge bias, but double points when you start a P18 in the pit lane, definitely want to give a special shout out there. All right, let's move on now to our weekend loser, and I am choosing to go with Ferrari, mainly because a double DNF, one driver error, and one from getting taken out by a rookie definitely a long weekend. I think Ferrari is definitely feeling the pain this season, and while they still do sit P2 in the Constructors' Championship, it is just really struggling to put together some really solid weekends from both cars and both drivers. And so it has been a long weekend for them. We already kind of touched on a lot of this at the time, but it's hard to lose both of your cars in the same corner and not feel particularly good about it. So no one really blames them. And it was really between this and my honorable mention of Lando Norris. Obviously, we touched on Lando as well, losing a full race win to Oscar in the championship. But in my case for Ferrari over Lando still has 9 rounds to continue to fight for the championship. You never know what's going to happen over there. Ferrari, on the other hand, came into 2025 with the bold strategy of, hey, we had a race-winning car at the end of 2024. Why don't we change everything and see how that goes? So this was not a culmination from that point, but in the grand scheme of things, boy, is that tough to watch. All right, let's move on now to our predictions, results, go through our predictions that we made before the weekend began, and then we'll add it up, and then we'll give an update to the Community Championship, who got a bit of a spicing up after this result, thanks to a very solid couple of weekends and a lower down weekend for our championship leader at the moment. We'll begin with my pick for biggest positive surprise, and I went with Max Verstappen. Ding, ding, ding. He went from P9 in Hungary down to a P2, finishing ahead of a McLaren, a fact that cannot be refuted. Finishing ahead of McLaren at his home race. Absolutely huge bounce back, taking the point for that one. As we move on now to my pick for biggest disappointment, I went with Fernando Alonso, in which this was a roller coaster of emotions when it came to tracking this prediction, because Fernando looked very, very quick from the jump, and Aston Martin did, until Q3, where he had a mistake or a moment and finished qualifying in P10, lost a handful of positions at the start of the race, but then was there to take advantage of the late safety cars to move up and still finish solidly in the points, albeit behind Stroll. I did debate very briefly about a half point, but at the end of the day, I mean, it was a double Aston Martin points finish, and Fernando was right there in the mix. So can't argue with that one too much, so no points on that one. Moving on to my qualifying top 3 in another weekend case of nailing every single driver in the top 3 correctly, but just in the wrong positions. I went with a Lando Norris pole position, a Max Verstappen P2, and an Oscar Piastri P3. So what ended up happening was an Oscar Piastri pole, a Lando Norris P2, and a Max Verstappen P3. So got all 3 drivers, just in the wrong positions. 1.5 points, half a point each, adds up to 1.5. So we'll take that one to the bank. Moving on to my race podium, and this is where I actually lose the bulk majority of my points so far for this weekend. Obviously qualifying in the podium where the big points are made. I went with a Lando Norris win, an Oscar Piastri P2, and a Max Verstappen P3. Assuming track position would be king, and lo and behold, it realistically was, outside of a mechanical DNF. So we actually ended up with an Oscar Piastri win, a Max Verstappen P2, and an Isaac Hadjar P3. So half point each for Oscar and for Max. So add it all up, that's a single point for my podium. And then wrapping things up with my one crazy prediction, I went for Yuki Tsunoda finishes in the points for the first time since Imola, and ding, 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 we got that one spot on. And now it definitely took a Lando Norris DNF and a Kimi Antonelli cumulative 15 seconds worth of penalties, but by God, he finished P9, and I'm taking that point all the way to the bank. So as we head into our Community Championship update, I ended up taking 4.5 points this weekend, so it could have been a lot higher, but at the end of the day, I'll never snark at 4.5 points total over the weekend. And if we take a look at our updated Community Points standings, there is a little bit of a change up at the top. But thanks to a lower point weekend from our leader, Senel40, who still remains at the top with 55 points. We now have a new P2 in the standings at 53.5 points with British TTG. I am now in P3 with 53 points, just a half point back. We have F1 Inferno with 43.5 points, Andrew on 32 points, and Spectral still bringing up the rear, 10.5 points. So the championship is tightening up after the rundown to the summer break. Really saw a large gap start to dwindle down, but as we now head with 9 rounds remaining, it is anyone's game at the top. If you're interested in jumping in and having your predictions heard in the Discord and join the Community Showcase, you can head to the link down below and join the Discord. Leading up to every weekend, we make a call for these predictions, and you can see if you can cook up the best. My guys, that leaves only one question remaining. What is next in Formula One? And it is Monza. It is the Temple of Speed. It is the Italian Grand Prix. Not but a week from now, we'll be seeing the Scuderia red all over Monza, and it is going to be lovely to see. It is one of my favorite weekends on the calendar. The passion and the energy of Monza is unmatched, and while the track might be the simplest on the calendar, it can definitely breed some insanity if it wants to. Last year, we saw a Leclerc win, an Oscar Piastri P2, and a Lando Norris P3. Who are we going to see on the podium this year? Is Ferrari going to bounce back, get another podium, and really charge forward in their home race? Is Lando Norris going to get revenge against Oscar Piastri and take home a win of his own? Or is Oscar Piastri going to continue his dominance? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. But guys, that wraps up our Dutch Grand Prix race review. What did you think of the Dutch Grand Prix? Let me know down in the comment section below. And if you made it this far into the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a thumbs up on the video. It really helps me out. But guys, we'll be back in not but a couple of days for predictions for Monza. Once again, if you're interested in joining, join the link down below, join the Discord, join this little community we have growing, and get in on the action. But guys, that is going to do it for me here in this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.